I was like, oh my gosh, did I break the meeting?
I got so obsessed with like, don't click that one, don't click that one, don't click that one. Is like
You
my
click
brain,
that
of course, was
one.
like, click that one. Go ahead. All right, we're
So fun.
re-recording back together.
Okay, so to answer your question, we did put it in the plan. So one of the things that we did say in there, and I had to look through the sections, I can't remember exactly which off the top of my head, but what we had suggested was that what you guys really need is a little bit more information before you can make the best decision. The truth is, the building that you're in has quite a bit of space that's being currently unused. And because you're in such a historically old building, there is a good possibility that you might be able to receive some sort of grant funding and some other supports to be able to sort of restructure how that building is laid out. And the reason why we were wanted to make sure we engage in that is because also when we were at the school, we learned just how many parents loved like having the school in their neighborhood or very close to them. And when we looked around, we were like, okay, lots of construction, lots of things shifting, but like, if you were going to move, would you be able to manage and keep that same sort of local feel? And that's going to be its own challenge. And so what our suggestion was that you would actually work with someone who does sort of that historical architectural design to really come through and look. And I'll just give you an example of what I mean. Your lower level could be completely reconfigured so you'd have so much more room. You could also think a little bit differently about the upper level as well. I mean, I will just say this, I hope Lisa doesn't mind, but like one of the suggestions we had just sort of offhandedly talked about was like, what if the administration was upstairs and the art room was downstairs, like in their space, right? Just because your classrooms and things like that are a little bit smaller, and that would kind of give more space for offices and additional administrative staff. That's just one example, but you could also say that could be the same place if the downstairs had been refinished, like in the one room where I don't know if you guys are still using a lot, that one sensory room, and then you had the other sort of general teachers lounge that we were in when we held the circles and things. If you could think about like, well, what would it be like if you came down here and those were reconfigured in a different way or reused and you know what I mean? You also have a really large hallway that's there that could also be turned into a different kind of space. I'm not an architect. I don't know anything about these things. I also know there was a lot of conversations about the windows. So that was like sort of just one thing that we thought about was having someone who really understood what it might look like, what it might take, what the investment would be. The other side of it, we did suggest that you also talk with a realtor who could tell you like, well, what really is available right now in Grand Rapids and like what that cost would look like. Would you be getting into a mortgage or another rent? What would that build out look like? What would the space be? Because we did kind of get the impression that if you all were to move, you want more outdoor space. So like, what would that mean in terms of general location? So I'm saying all of these things. You could tell Libby and I had a little conversation about this. um, and I think for me, I'll just say, I'll speak from my own thought was, I thought that if you really were presented with two really good, solid ideas and potentials, it could make it a lot easier for you to make the choice of, you know, does CDC really want to grow and have more students, or do you just want to have more room for your students versus do you really need a bigger space so you can have more students in a sort of a bigger school? And those are questions that we didn't really answer in this plan because number one, you all have so many different interventions coming online and you all are really working through a lot of curriculum development to get the best out of your students that you are still kind of figuring out and sort of A/B testing and that sort of thing. And with that, we got the impression that no one really wanted to see bigger classrooms or more classrooms and things like that. And so felt like classroom sizes needed to be sort of capped to where they are um, for right now until you all had made sort of finalized and figured out exactly how the programs were going to be working with the interventionists and the reading skills and the writing skills and so forth. I probably over answered, but I hope that's helpful. And I hope maybe it sparked other questions or other concerns.
The other
But
thing
you,
yeah. Oh, I'll let Molly jump in first
Oh,
here.
I was just gonna say that's very helpful
Yeah.
because I mean, I'm big picture, but I'm also like, how does this affect my day to day as a teacher here? And like, what's that going to look like in the future? And I think I love what you said, like, are we expanding the student body versus are we just allocating more room for students and like building out the programs? And I think that's a really like interesting way to think about what we're doing and like the direction that we want to take. So yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what I might offer there too is I think what this plan or pathway that we're offering really tries to center is expanding the capacity of each of the various different groups to do what they do well, right? So expanding the capacity of the board to do what they do well, expanding the capacity of the leadership team, Lisa and her, people leading the school to do their job well, expanding the ability of the teachers to feel, secure and grounded in doing their own work, right? That everybody has this, because I think that, the choice to move into another building, if ultimately that was the decision to move to a new building, that's a huge move, a huge undertaking. And so really each of the different groups needs to be feeling really solid in doing their job. Right. And so I think that's what this plan is attempting to offer people, is to sort of shore up the capacity of each of those groups to do their jobs well, so that you can collectively answer these questions about where you want to go with the school in the future. So I'll pose that same question that Molly's, kind of in the vein of what Molly's question was. Were there things that you expected to see in this plan that you didn't see? Something beyond maybe the building and what's happening with the building? Yeah, Sana.
I think maybe just I don't think this was in the plan, but like this is on the same line as far as like how to better utilize the space in the building. But we have the preschool in our building, we have the before and after school program in our building. Um, I feel like our gymnasium is small. Um, but yeah, I just wonder, like, are there plans for those programs to continue? Or I know the before and after school program is a big seller, for people to also come to our school, because the parents need that care before and after. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't see anything in there about that, because they take up a lot of our space. And then our cafeteria is like, there's this big, huge room, and that's also used by the before and after school care. So there's a lot of our space that's being utilized by the EDC and all that. So I don't know if there was any talk. I think I heard Lisa mention something about that at one time, maybe at a board meeting or something, but I don't know. I don't know if there's any other conversations about it.
So I believe so that goes back to the conversation about like having a specialist come in and look at your space to give you more options. It was my understanding with the preschool in particular, because there was a continuity feeling, and you all had like kind of an established relationship, that it appeared that the leadership wanted to continue. That I don't think that we pose that as a question of do they stay or do they go, but more as a question of, when we're thinking about the space in the school, what are CDC's actual needs, right? And could those needs be all met in this building if it was to be restructured in a different way? And I said, it's so to answer about like, well, would the preschool still be there or not, is something I don't know that I would be able to answer, because I think until you have someone who can really come in and look at the space and tell you, these are your options, and this is maybe how you could expand the cafeteria, and this is where before and after school could be, and this is where the preschool could be, and this is where offices could be, and really gives you some sort of workup that's based on that. I'm not sure that we were in a position to even answer that. But we can say that and Libby, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like, again, just to repeat that, I believe that when we first started having the conversation about the preschool, it appeared that was a relationship that wanted to be continued. And so,
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it is incumbent upon the board and leadership to be in some critical decision making about that. About yes, you want the relationship to continue, but yes, you could also use more space. And so, as you sort of encounter these sort of like maybe difficult decisions, really, like Dawn has said, sort of gathering some more of the information from other specialists who can offer you a wider range of possibilities, right? So. All right. Other questions? Other,
Hi,
yeah.
this is Abby. Sorry, I couldn't find the
Yeah.
hand raise button.
Okay.
So one of the questions I had, I see a lot of the like SEL and like training and like community outreach and that kind of thing. Were there any other suggestions? And maybe I overlooked this. I didn't in depthly read through every single screen. I got the information late, so I apologize. But any
It's too
other
bad because there is
recommendations?
there's a quiz at the end of this.
Okay,
So.
darn it.
Yeah.
I'll cram real quick right after. Um, is there any other recommendations in terms of like academic things? I know we incorporated in a music program. We've had families asking about like foreign language, additional things like the computer classes or the phys ed programs or things like that, additional sports or like community activity type things. Is that something that you guys look at and make recommendations about? Is there a need that you felt or you saw from any of the interviews with families or staff in terms of additional programming that we may want to look at bringing in at some point in the next 5 years to help enhance?
I don't think there's anything in there specific to that right now. And it is something I remember having like one or two conversations about, but wasn't a frequent sort of. I think a lot of the feedback we got was ultimately about like kind of like supporting what you already have, less so on the expansion. So, Dawn, I don't know if you want to add something on that.
Yeah, so one of the things was because you guys are still so new in the curriculum choice, like the curriculums that you have, and you're still working through them, that goes back to the interventions. So now I was saying interventions, that's sort of the thing I'm thinking about, right? Is like the new reading and mathematics curriculum that you guys are working to improve and standardize sort of the test scores, but how then you guys are also working, or from what I understood from Sarah, and forgive me if I've misunderstood, but you guys are still trying to figure out, like, well, how does that Reggio philosophy still lay on top of this curriculum building, right? So how is it that you're still teaching these things in a standardized way, but still bringing in child expression and child voice and all of those things? And so, um, because you guys are still settling out in the academic realm, and then also because, like Libby said, in most of our parenting conversations we had, there wasn't a lot of concern about the academics. Most of the parents felt very satisfied with where their children were, how their education was going, and conversations with teachers, and they were pretty satisfied overall with the academic portion. That I believe we just sort of let that part not be part of the plan. But I will say that if there was a need to bring it in, and that goes back to the pathway part about it being flexible, is if, in, let's say, in 2 or 3 years where things are feeling a lot more solid, and some of the teacher interventions that they're working on together to build an improving teaching and classroom consistency and things like that, then that might be something that might come in later. But for right now at the onset, I don't recall having anyone come in and say, or any level of dissatisfaction or wanting change or improvement. If anything, it was one of the more consistent line items we heard from the board, leadership, teachers, and parents.
Mm.
So I guess one of the things I'm a little curious about is, how are you guys feeling, especially for anyone who's staff or teachers or board members, how are you all feeling about the plan and knowing that some of this work is going to rest in your hands in terms of implementation? Just, they can be generic thoughts, or, I mean, not generic, but like, general sort of feedback, or if you've got something really specific, like if it's like, oh yeah, it's okay, like even that would be great, because these things do hinge on the implementation portion of it.
I feel like it's nice that it's kind of taking something that's somewhat intangible and making it a little bit more concrete. I feel like that helps me to like prepare myself and like get ready to do it, I guess, to expand capacity to be able to do those things. But in the other sense, I have to like remind myself that it is a 5-year plan. And so it's like the day you get your syllabus in school and like, it seems like it's all coming at you and you have to remind yourself that that you have time to do it. So I have to like balance those two things of like overwhelm, like this is really big with, I'm like, these are all things that we all wanted to do. And so we're excited to do them.
Thanks,
Thank
Miranda.
you. That's lovely.
There are quite a few overlaps between like our school improvement plan and this bigger strategic plan. And I love when that, I hate the word synergy, but I'm going to use it. That synergy happens where like
Yeah.
you see the goals start to align. So I definitely see that. And knowing Lisa and Sarah, I anticipate that they're going to lay those two plans on top of each other even more for the staff. So we can see that it's like, we're already doing this and we're going to tweak it, or we're already doing this and we're just going to keep going. So I think that's important work, though. I think that there's going to be a lot more buy-in, because that's always important too. When people hear that things are changing and we're going to do all this, like you still have to have that buy-in. And I see the parallels, which is really great, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think ultimately when when the whole staff and the whole community see this plan, like you said, Lisa and Sarah are going to work to make sure all those three plans are sort of integrated, so it doesn't feel like you're working in three different pathways, that it is integrated into one pathway in the way that makes the most sense for all of you, right? And that it feels, and I think that's something we've really, tried to set out to do just with the plan itself, that everything does feel achievable, and like really holding on to that idea that it isn't we must do everything now, but they are, that it shows you a pathway of actions you can take. So
I would like to know
Sana.
a little bit more about strategy 4B with the implement a school-wide accountability evaluation framework. Because it sounds like that includes the board members and leadership positions.
It does. So I mean, this is the part I will say. I think that's one of the things that I would say about the 4B is Libby and I both have backgrounds in evaluation, and one of the things I think we both feel pretty strongly about is, as you're moving forward in something, it's always really important to look back and see, are you doing what you thought you were going to be doing, or are you doing something different, and sort of thinking about why. And so this idea of the framework is us sort of taking a stab at sort of looking at the school as an entire entity as opposed to being pieces, right? So this isn't just, this is just like sort of Lisa, or this is just sort of Sarah, this is just sort of the academic curriculum, or this is the social emotional curriculum, but like, how are all of these things kind of coming together? And then how are things coming together that might require, maybe a little bit more of a governance focus, and that's going to have, a lot more board activity, or versus like, for example, if you are in key leadership, how are you being evaluated with your job? Right now, I believe it's just the board that, sort of does the evaluations, but with all due respect, the teachers are working under the leadership every day. And so like, being able to sort of hear both like, what does the board see? And then sort of what does the staff and the teachers see, and sort of how to, and because in that way, I think that our ideal here was that way we could support and take a more holistic look at sort of how can we support people in these leadership positions at being their best, and being their best at CDC, not in a way that's punitive in any way, but really just, like, how are we working together, and what are some things, and sort of feedback structure. And so that was the goal there. And the biggest piece about that was really having a database. And this was really something that I thought would be really helpful, because you could start to track sort of students over time in a way that would be a lot more a little bit easier. So for example, one of the things I was looking in the literature and I was noticing is like sometimes when students are having a tough time in like grade 2 mathematics, you know, grade 3, it may look like it's sort of cleared up, but then by grade 5, some of those situations are starting to dip again. And I was like, it would be really great to see like how children are improving and are they improving as holistically as we think they are, you know? Or is it that there are still sort of gaps that really need slower because brain development does not happen all at once. Our brains happen and grow in smaller, slower ways. And so anyway, all that to say, that was the intention of the framework, was really taking the school and looking at an entire entity and seeing how all these pieces are fitting together for the benefit of CDC.
I really appreciate you kind of like pulling that one out, Sana, because I think it also lends itself to, if I thought about, went back and looked at 3B as well, and where we talk about sort of like internal democracy. So I think across all of the goals, Dawn and I really tried to think about how the structures that we're recommending, how this is the action steps that we're recommending, kind of support shared accountability, shared power across each of the groups who are responsible for different things, right? And so that more like holistic evaluation, that shared accountability to everything, whether it's, student success or, how the leadership's performing, how the board is performing, that you're all in community together, right? And that you're a little less hierarchical, a little bit more democratic, right? And so we try to make recommendations across that, because I do also think that's very much in line with the Reggio philosophy as well. So yeah, thanks, Justine.
I did want to just comment really quickly. Abby had asked a question and I saw, well, I think there was 2 comments.
Yeah.
And so there's a question about like the order of things, or first priority. So not right now, because you guys are in the midst of crosswalking these 3 sort of plans. We think that there's going to be some natural fallout to what should happen first or second or third. And we're going to sort of work with the board and leadership to determine, what that structure is going to look like, which is like, what do you think? If it was going to be me that was going to select, as I'm always one who likes to build on successes as opposed to building on struggles, so it's like, what are the ones that we can come together and work with and be most efficient, and it's going to solve all of these 3, crosswalk across all 3 plans, and then kind of moving step by step, and then what are the ones that are going to be really difficult that we really need to kind of chip away, because it's going to take the whole 5 years for that to actually come to fruition, right? So but I know that Lisa and Sarah have started that crosswalk, and so after we sort of taken whatever additional feedback the board has in our conversation tonight, we'll work with them to sort of finalize and restructure and things like that. Does that answer your question? Okay, cool.
Yeah, so just, thank you to Justine for noting the time here. We are right at the top of the hour, and we really do want to hold, we know this is your free time on an evening. And so just a little time for maybe one last question or something you really want to draw our attention to before we wrap up. Yeah, I'm seeing Amy's question in the chat here, who, part of an implementation matrix that we would offer would include who's sort of responsible for implementing that, or who's going to lead that. And so, as we think about how all the pieces of this plan work together, and like I said, taking that more democratic approach, that it's not all falling on Lisa to implement, it's not all falling on individual teachers to implement, that there is really shared responsibility for everything. And so that is part of that kind of implementation matrix of who is responsible for walking these things out. So, and that applies to both strategic community relationships as well as every other aspect of the plan. So, Dawn, anything else to add there?
No, I think that's probably, yeah, I think you answered that. I don't think I have anything to add.
Okay, oh, good. Yeah, and I did not have a list of sort of board members in front of me. And I know there's a handful of you here tonight who are board members, and and there's in a large part you are responsible for the implementation of this plan. And so we really do want to hear, I know you're not all here tonight. So if there's more from you as a board, please, feel free to email Dawn and I with any additional feedback that you have, or questions that arise as you sort of mull over the conversation here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sana. It was good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Thank you both.
All right. So yeah, as folks start to leave here, feel free to carry on about your night. Thank you so much for being with us here tonight. And Dawn and I will hang here for just a minute. So if you want to hang back and ask a question, that's no problem at all. But otherwise, thank you so much and have a great night.
Thank you for your openness for this whole process as well. I really, in case I don't get a chance to see you all again, I just want to say thank you for, just the feedback and the time you all took to give us stories and talk to us and really just being open and honest. We just really appreciated it because we wouldn't have been able to put this together had it not been for you all taking the time. So I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm no longer on the board, but I'm still very invested in the school. So I can't wait to see what happens and how this goes. And
Excellent. Thanks
we'll
for being
continue
here.
to be a community member support as long as I'm able.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
one.
Thanks, everybody. See you later.
Bye,
Thank
Miranda.
you.
Bye, Molly.
Thank you guys both. I just wanted to listen tonight, but thank you for seeing us. That's something Lisa and I have talked about quite a bit when we've talked about your guys' work, is that we feel seen as a community, which, a slightly different type of school that we are was it, something we were concerned about going into this process is, are they going to see us? So, a lot of the affirmation you guys gave us and just making us feel like, no, you understand who we are and what our motivations are meant the world to us. So thank you guys both so much for the amazing work that you guys have done.
Oh,
Thank you so
thank
much,
you.
Stephen. Yeah, the Reggio philosophy really speaks to me, and I think we need more of that in the world. And I hope the plan that we're delivering also continues to turn you down that pathway of bringing something different to your community. So.
I just
Awesome.
want to say thanks so much. I just really appreciate your time and just the process of talking to all our community members and just so much effort that you put into this. It really shows through in this plan, and it's exciting to see how in line it is, like has been said, with what other things that we're doing at school and our mission and just who we are. So yeah, really, really appreciate all you've done, and it's exciting to have this in our hands, and I look forward to getting into the nitty-gritty of it and understanding it more. And thank you for taking the time to just have this Q&A during your summer too. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would echo what Stephen said, but even more in like the meta sense. I think for me, both as a parent and as just even like a person in our community, right? Like this to me is like the work, right? That I want to be doing in my life, and that I feel like is so important, right? In terms of breaking down like that hyper individualistic American ideal that we're all supposed to be ascribing to, right? I think that that's part of the reason so many of us are both on this call and a part of this school community, right? Is that is so important to us. And so it was just, I think, really clarifying to see all of this written down and be like, yep, this is what we need to be doing, right? Like this is why we're here. And while it does seem like a lot, it also still feels very achievable, right? Like this to me feels like the right stuff in a way.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I
Thank you,
love that.
Justine. Yeah, and I mean, it feels great to hear you, all y'all as board members, like really feeling like you can get behind this plan, because it's going to take the board to really kind of invest themselves in seeing this plan through, right?
Yeah.
And we can't all fall on Lisa, right? So it's really good to hear you all, showing up and getting behind this plan.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there is, it almost feels like there is some like re-parenting and like re-going to school as parents now, that feels like very healing in a way. I don't know. I felt like that was coming through in this plan, in a way that, I've done a lot of strategic planning in my professional career, right? Like that I've never felt before. So that was also really, that felt really good.
Yeah.
Yay. Yay.
It makes me think about what Jennifer said earlier about like,
Yeah.
you choose Reggio because something about it speaks to you as a parent, but it's not how you were raised. It's not how you went to school. And so there is a learning curve, reparenting, as you said. So
Yeah,
I like it.
for
I
sure.
like it.
I mean, you guys have such a really unique school and a really unique culture that Libby and I tried very hard to not take away from that or try to make you something or add things that didn't feel aligned with, what we heard as the school's values and parents' values and the culture and the things that had brought you to this far, sort of being this successful. And we really did want to we really wanted to kind of hold true to that. So your words tonight really mean a lot to us, just to know that we were able to successfully transmit that and then still ideally offer you all like a guiding light to kind of help you move forward through the next 5 years so you can continue to build and be better. And we do have some resources. I do just want to make sure I didn't say that earlier. I don't think we really talked about it, but there are some resources that will help think through so that way, some of these things won't have to be so difficult, like when it comes to like finding a database software, like we offered a few and we'll offer a few more for like some of the ones that we know that really do a great job in terms of supporting board capacity building, especially for really super involved boards. And just sort of those sorts of things, as well as just to kind of get you started and ideally even maybe some funding and things like that, or you could apply for to kind of help you or help the school, not you as an individual, but help the school continue to do its work. So
Cool. Awesome. Thank you very much. We have to jump off. We'll see you later.
thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Anything else before we depart?
I think so. I think that's it. Thank you both so much again. And we'll talk to you guys later.
That sounds good. Have a great night, guys.
All good?
Yep.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Close this out. There you go. Why did that not close? Zoom out place. Quit Zoom place. Why is it not closing? Come on. Doug, did you see that I sent you that?
Yeah, I saw that you were sending me emails. I'll look through them.
How do I close this? Why is it not closing?